Welcome. I'm Dr. Dan Flores, University Librarian at Texas Lutheran University and Project Manager for the NEA Big Read Seguin. Before we begin the program, it's fitting that we acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Coloticos, Carancaras, Tonkawas, Lipan Apaches, and the Comanches, and other indigenous groups. It is my honor to invite Elder Teddy Herrera, spiritual leader of the Rio Grande Native American Church, and Tloctoani of the Tlaxcalteca Nation and affiliated tribes, to offer a prayer in the heart language of his people. Elder Teddy, please come up.
Thank you, Doctor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm actually going to do two short prayers. One is a maternal language, which is Nahuatl, and then a language that was spoken by the Cahualtecan people called Come Crudo. So, Walitonaliteo, Atlasokamate, Ikamo, Eshistan, Teteo Chualitzli, Atlasokamate, Ikamo, TLU, Treyakanani, Ikamo, Tlanisla, Mawotzli, Notokoli. We greet you, Creator, and we thank you for your many blessings, and we thank you for TLU leaders for showing respect to our ancestors. As Dr. Flores said, I'm Tlaxcalteca and Chichimeca on my maternal side. I'm also Cahualteco on my paternal side, and the folks who lived along the Rio Grande spoke Come Crudo. There's actually two languages that were captured at the missions, and we grew up being more familiar with Come Crudo. So before I say the blessing in the Cahualtecan language, I just want to let you know that I appreciate the acknowledgement that Dr. Flores mentioned, because most of what's available to read nowadays, we're either extinct or we got absorbed by other cultures. But there's several of us that grew up with oral history, and our parents continued some of the traditions. And so there is still somebody around here to appreciate the acknowledgement that TLU is doing. And so I'm very grateful for that. If you've never read the account that Albert Núñez Cabeza de Vaca left behind back in the mid-1500s, it's interesting reading. And he talks about his 8 years that he lived among the Carancawas and crossed southern Texas and lived with many, many Cahualtecan bands. There was hundreds of Cahualtecan bands. There were small bands, but they lived all throughout South Texas. And they would be close to where there was rivers and food sources like nopales and the prickly pear and pecans, sotol and game. They were also hunter-gatherers, so they would move around a lot, very nomadic. So there was hundreds of them for thousands of years, and one of the bigger groups were called Payaya, and they lived at the Yanaguana, which is the San Antonio River, and they would range far from their home in all directions, and so they had an encampment. I don't know exactly where, but it was on the Guadalupe River. And then there was other less known smaller bands of Cahualtecos who lived in this area. And so I'm honored to be here. And tonight when I go to my sacred place there among the giant grandfather pecan trees at Starkey Park, I will share what I witnessed today with the spirits that live in the trees and in the river. So to finish, I'd like to say, and this is in our Come Crudo language, Emna yema menna wasola wak, Emna yema menna waso wakate, ha inan ile waite nawe, ha inan ile waite met metil. Creator, thank you for bringing us together in this good way to share and exchange this information. Aho, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Elder Teddy Herrera. Texas Lutheran University and the NEA Big Read Seguin are pleased to present Kelly Lola Wilcox Moore. I will see if her brother Marlon is on the call. He is. Let me get him on here. All right. Mo, I'm going to let you in. All right. So we're going to invite also Mo Wilcox Moore, her brother. He's going to be here for moral support. And we're glad to have both of you here with us today. For the next hour, we're going to discuss the amazing story of the Wilcox Ranch. This is a story of resilience. It's our history that we share, and it's something that's very important to us here in Guadalupe County, but also even beyond. And so you're going to get to hear this straight from the family. So without further ado, I want to welcome Lola Wilcox Moore. Please introduce yourself to the audience. And then before we start, you'll tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started on this journey.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody, thanks for showing up. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the people that came before us, the Tonkawa tribe that was on our land before we were on our land. And yeah, so I'm very appreciative to be able to share their stories. My work is what I call a divine assignment. And it really is that in so many ways. So I get to tell stories about my ancestors dating back several generations. And it starts in this piece of the story with my great-great-grandpa Henry, my great-grandma Mary. He was born in 1833 and stolen from his country, enslaved in this country, first in Kentucky, and then in Seguin, right where you sit. So yeah, the story is, it's bittersweet in some ways. It's a story of beyond resiliency in so many ways. I feel incredibly blessed in so many ways because they literally and strategically and specifically chose me to tell their stories. And my brother and I have very different parts of the assignment, but it is a divine assignment, as I said. And we were living it probably in utero. I was for sure. And didn't know that, of course, until 2014, it became crystal clear that what I've been living, what I've been experiencing, writing, all those things it's all pieces to a much larger tapestry. So each piece of my work, whether it's the ancestral greeting cards, whether it's a virtual discussion, an exhibit, these talks, are what I call quilting squares to a much larger tapestry. What I was gifted with is it seems like a box of puzzle pieces, right? With a lot of quote unquote random things. They're not so random now, I know that, but it seemed random, like letters and pictures and stories and artifacts in the house and the cemetery and branding irons and plows and all these things, right? And so I understand that God, knows me in from the beginning, and he knew me before he formed me in my mother's womb. He knew what he planted in me. He knew my gifts, my passions, my talents, my temperament. He knew that. And this work is perfectly suited for me because I get to be myself. I get to pretty much say what I want to say and do what I want to do. I get to use my creative gifts, my verbal prowess, the gift to write, the gift to think in a different way. Those are gifts, the things that I know and who I am, and all these things I didn't learn in school. They are literally who I am. So my work is different. It's definitely set apart. It's work that I'm living. It's not a hobby. It's not, I'm not punching a time clock. It's not that kind of work. It's divine work, and it's different and sometimes lonely, sometimes very painful, because I am unable to do my work and tell these stories without the context of horrific American history in some ways. I wouldn't be here without these people. So I must, honor them by telling their truth. So as I said, my great-great-grandpa was enslaved in this country in Kentucky, first and landed in Seguin. And when he was freed, a few years after that, in 1870, he purchased some land. So the story goes that he walked from the middle of Seguin. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but in Seguin, in the middle of town there, they used to sell slaves. And so at one point, you guys probably have farmers markets there now. But at one point, slaves were sold like fruit. Okay, or pants or shoes or whatever. And in 1870, after he got freed, and also my brother told me this part too, my grandmother did actually, that near the Starkey, the bridge there's a laundromat and there's a yellow, a butter colored building there. I'm told that it was a plantation house and that slaves were emancipated there on that very property, in that very space. So in 1870, great-great-grandpa Henry walked from that place 12 miles to Jake's Colony, which is a freedman settlement. And I hope you know what a freedman settlement is. But if you don't, that's cool, because they gave me the assignment also to amend American history. And so by telling their stories, I get to do that. Just by telling their stories, that's all I need to do. That's it. I don't put anything on it. It's not my story, but I get to tell it. And so they walked 12 miles to Jake's Colony and commune with other family members and other community members, and banded together and created a freedman settlement. This freedman settlement, there were lots of them, hundreds of them all across the South there, and not just the South, and other places too. But a freedman settlement is a place where people were gathering to create community and build their own towns with their own infrastructure to support the people in their community. And so it's an amazing feat, really it is, that they could get together. And so I want you to take a deep breath for a second. I'll do the same because I talk fast, I know.
That's
So-
right. We have a little echo in here, so if you slow it down a bit.
Oh, you do? Okay,
we'll,
thank you for saying that.
The
Thank
echo
you for saying
return will
that.
help.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, how's this? Let's see if that's a little better. Okay, is that better? Okay, so when I thought about this, I thought this man was released. They were released from slavery. The shackles were removed. They were free to move about, a kind of free, not all the way free, but kind of free, right? And I was thinking, did he have clothes? Did he have extra clothes? Did he have food? He didn't have a suitcase, I'm sure. Did he have a satchel? Did he have a knapsack? I'm not sure what he had. Did he have shoes? I don't know. So that's a tricky thing to think about, right? That's just wild to even stop right there and think, what did they have besides what's inside of them, right? That part, the part that helped me get here, right? So I'm wondering, they walked 12 miles to a freedman settlement, commune with other people like themselves who were recently freed from chattel slavery, and started communities. And Jake's Colony was actually founded by a cousin of my great-grandma Tilla. I'll talk to you about her in a second. So she's the matriarch, the brains behind the operation. She's the reason that we still have this, and she helped my great-grandpa build what he inherited from his father. So I'm thinking they got together, started thinking about, what do we do now? How do we do this? There's no roadmap. There's no plan. You know what I mean? So this is something that most of us can't really conceive of, but it happened. And eventually Jake's Colony had about 70 working Black-owned ranches that were thriving. They had their own Rosenwald School. They had their own Methodist church and their own cemetery. And we steward the cemetery today. The cemetery is called Ridley Cemetery. And it's named after my cousin, Daniel Ridley, because my great-grandpa bought land from him in 1919. And the cemetery is now recognized as a historical landmark through the Texas Historical Commission. So we'll be getting a marker very soon for the cemetery. Just to honor, where they're laid to rest, because far too often our communities, Black folks, communities are decimated and they'll build condos over your burial site. And the same thing for Indigenous people in this country. Their spots are very disrespected. And, we can't allow that. We won't allow, not on our watch anyway. So that's that. So yeah, so they had these working farms and ranches, and they were very self-contained. My grandmother tells me stories about how self-contained they really were. They were very entrepreneurial in spirit. They were businessmen. They were amazing people. I mean, I am still highly impressed. It takes a lot to impress me. Really, it does. And I am not kidding about that. And I'm impressed by what they did and who they were. And so when I stop to think about it, I'm like, what must they have been made of to accomplish what they accomplished? Black folks were being lynched and killed and beaten and terrorized off of their land. So in historical context, in 1919, the year that my great-grandpa bought land, 6 acres from his cousin to do the cemetery, Red Summers is a part of a bloody, horrific part of American history where Black folks are being lynched and killed simply for being Black. You can read about it yourself. So great-great-grandpa Henry purchased land in 1870. I'm told he's the first Black man on record in the area to purchase property. I have the deed from 1870, as a matter of fact. So 152 years. In fact, his birthday is this month, October. So yeah, so he had the foresight and the creativity and the tenacity to start a ranch, right? Started a ranch and purchased the land. And he had about 10 children. And one of his sons was my great-grandpa Thomas. That's my grandmother's father. And when great-great-grandpa Henry passed away, Thomas took the land that he inherited and grew the Wilcox Ranch to what it is today. So he's the one sibling that stayed and worked beside his dad. My great-grandpa Thomas never worked for any man in his whole life except his father. He was born in 1877 and died in 1941. That's pretty impressive to me too, that he would inherit some land from his dad, which is an amazing thing even, right? Most of us don't get that, right? And again, had the foresight and tenacity and creativity to grow the ranch. He and his wife, remember Tilla is the brains behind the operation, right? My great-grandma Tilla. So I was born in a household where Tilla was living in Berkeley at that time, because again, he died in 1941 and she didn't pass until 1968. So she left the big house, the house that he built over 100 years ago, where our ranch is located. And she moved to Berkeley. And so when I was born, there were 4 generations in my household. And so I believe that my parents had to come together in order to have me to do this work. That's how deep it is for me. Like my dad kind of had an idea when he gave birth to my mom. I'm not so sure. At any rate, I do believe that they came together. And so my paternal grandmother was always an anchor for me in utero. And as small children, we started going to the big house. We call it the big house, the house that my great-grandpa Thomas and Tilla built, the house that my grandmother was born in 1912. And so, yeah, that's the house my brother lives in right now, and I live in part of the time. So what's also funny about the story is as a 10-year-old kid, my brother was feeding the cows in the exact same location that he works in now with the cows. I'm the same land, same space, just a different time, decades later. So what we're doing is, as a kid, and what I was doing as a kid at that time, writing letters. So it's no accident that I have a stationery company that I create ancestral greeting cards and notebooks. That's something that God ordained. I didn't even think about it. It's just these things are happening for us pretty organically. But as I tell the stories and live the stories, that's the biggest piece. I'm living this story. It's not completely written. It's not done. It's steadily unfolding. I am steadily learning new things each step that I take, right? And it's an amalgamation of things, and I get to be the alchemist to weave it all together. So that by the time I leave this realm, their work will absolutely be cemented in American history. They will have their proper place. Absolutely. They knew who to choose. They knew what to do, obviously, long before I did. And so as children, I won't lie, I wasn't having that much fun at the big house as a kid because of the bugs, the scorpions and the spiders, and it's just not my thing, And so that was a deterrent. I was like, why are we here at first? But then, my whole life we're going to this house, spending our summers there and vacation and stuff. So it became a part of us, obviously, right? And interestingly enough, my brother and I have, and lots of our relatives have a serious affinity for this place and these people and their stories. And as I said, it happens organically. It is a palpable story. It is alive and well and thriving because they're still here, right? My brother is the person that stewards the land, all the land, the fences, the deer hunting season, the cemetery, and make sure the big house is still standing, so he's got quite a responsibility on his shoulders. And my part of the assignment is to be the griot, to tell their stories and to write them and to make sure that what they did, that their blood, sweat, and tears, the work that they, that they did doesn't go in vain. I couldn't live with myself if I let that go. You know what I mean? It's like I have to honor them because I'm here because of them,
Okay, Lola, you've got us spellbound. We have a room here full of folks here at the Wupperman Theater. Thank you for giving us that's 150 years of history compacted into just a few minutes. So
152.
I want to break 152, sorry.
Yes.
And we're going to break it down a little bit. I want to ask you a few questions about the ranch. And you mentioned about your family, and they came out of slavery and now bought some land. But I'm wondering about the challenges that they faced once they owned the land. This is the question is, what did they do for labor, and what did they do for support? You mentioned there's over 70 ranches that were in Jake's colony. What did they do to support each other? So tell me a little bit about that support structure and the challenges that they faced in that time.
Well, the challenges are ever present. And so, again, people that, and I want to be very clear to say that our history doesn't start with slavery. That was a part of our history. So we were free before that. And we're free, even during slavery, we still had our spirits intact. And here we are today. So, challenges, lots and lots of challenges. So for labor, they were cattle. My great-grandpa and my great-grandpa were ranchers and farmers. They had their own fully working farms. He was a whiskey distiller and a bondsman. So he was a businessman. Won't we say that? Absolutely, he was. And so they handled their business and working together. Everybody needed to stick together and work together to protect themselves, for one thing. So everybody's got what they need, and we can move forward as a people, as a group of people, this collective unit, this freedom and settlement, because all around them, Black folks are being terrorized. And so, and my ancestors believe in the right to bear arms, to be honest with you. They were very, very fierce businessmen. They were very serious people. They did not play. They pulled no punches. And I'm told that the high sheriff of the county also used to frequent the big house. So, they were fortunate in a lot of ways to be able to do what they did. Really, they were. And so for the ranch to be operational for this long, to have cattle is amazing to me. It blows my mind still. Really, it does. I don't even know how they do it. I'm like, how did you guys pull that off? And how's my brother do this? This is it's amazing to me. Really, it is.
Well, Lola, your story stands out among all the 70. What happened to the other ranches?
Well, so in the 30s, 40s, Black folks began to move west and to move north. And history, people call it the Great Migration. I'm not sure how great it was, because I believe that when we began to make those shifts, we lost a lot of things that made us who we were, that gave us power, that has shifted today. So lots of people, the descendants of these people, they move away. At that time, it was like, we want to move to the city. We live in the country, we want to leave the state. We want to have different opportunities. Women begin to leave the homes to work outside of the homes. Factories are being built. There's a lot of things happening in our society at large that, how could it not impact our community, right? So that's what happened. People began to leave the colony. And unfortunately, many people left their roots, So it's a huge deal. So think about this too. In 1900, Black folks owned 15 million acres of land. 15 million acres of land they owned. Today, less than 2% left. So 98% of that land is gone. It's gone. Completely gone forever. So it's a big deal that 152 years later, we could be here, you know what I mean? And even be in our right minds, because there was, like I said, lots of terror. So I think it's God. I believe that we have a hedge of protection around us. That's what I believe. That's my complete, perfect, solid belief. And that's why we're still here. That's how we endured and maintained and sustained the traumas and terrors all around us.
It must have been tempting to look at all the others that were moving out and getting away from the pressures, and as you pointed out, there you said terrors. So why did the Wilcox Moore family stay? What was it? What was it about the land that kept you here?
I really believe that my great-great-grandparents had a solid sense of self and a knowing. There's something sacred in that piece, right? There's something immovable in that piece, So
Say more about that.
So there's something in them. There was something in them that that made it very clear that this is about legacy. This is not about us necessarily. This is about why we're here and what we're going to do while we're here and how we're going to do it. You know, I'm speaking from my great-great-grandparents, but I'm sure that's what they thought, okay? And so based on their actions, you can tell what people are thinking and believing by their actions, right? By what actually transpires, not by what we say, right? So it's obvious to me that they were like, no, this is important. We're going to stay right here. This is valuable. We've bled for it. We sweat for it. We cried for it. And why would we leave? And yes, many of my grandmother's siblings, they did move to California. Absolutely, they did. But they always came back to the big house. Always. They moved to California. They set up businesses in California. So there was clearly an entrepreneurial spirit in these people, because he had the foresight and the creativity to first of all, you have to envision things before they come to fruition. They don't just pop out of the sky through osmosis, right? There's a thought somewhere. There's deliberate action somewhere, right? And so clearly he thought, well, we need to do something with this. Let's start a ranch, let's do our thing, and let's hold on to it. One thing he always said is hold on to your land. Don't divide this, don't separate it, don't sell it. Stick together. And just in general, human beings, we need to stick together. We're created to be communal people, tribal people. Because if you think about it, take it back in time, it wouldn't be safe for you to leave your tribe and wander into the wilderness, right? So just on a sociological level, scientific level, people band together. That's what we do as human beings, right? And so they were no different in that respect. The difference, I think, with the Wilcoxes is that they stayed and they understood certain things that they imparted to us without, like, no one really, like, well, that's not true. Someone did sit us down, but we were also living it. You know, all the while we're living this story. That's the piece I want you to get. It's coursing through my veins. No letters before my name or after my name will give me this. No paycheck will give me this. No house can give me this. Nothing that man can make or values or that you can buy can give me this piece. The Most High already did it. They already did it. It's done, you know? And there is some peace and some comfort that I have in the knowing of that. And the knowing of that, the beingness of it all, you know?
But tell us a little bit more about your own grounding in resilience, you have such a strong passion, you have such a strong spirit. I love that about you. But the audience here, I think, would love to hear what it is about that, where do you ground that in? And is there something that all of us can access, or is this just for Lola Wilcox Moore?
No. Wait, I am special, but not that special, right? So I think that there are some universal themes here. That's the piece. So one thing that I like to do is to remind people that everybody's got stories. I don't care who you are, everybody's got stories. The trip is most people are going to die with their stories, but that doesn't have to be the case. So before COVID hit, I would go into classrooms, a couple classrooms in the Bay Area, and share stories with the children and gift them a pen and notebook from my collection, because part of the work is to encourage other people to write and tell their own stories, whatever they are. It doesn't matter what they are, you have them. And what you choose to do with them is your choice. That's up to you. So my work is definitely inspirational, because I've noticed that since I've been doing this work, I start telling the stories and people go, oh, wait, I don't even know who my grandmother is. Or I don't have a picture of my great-grandparents. You have what? A deed? I was like, yeah, a deed from 1870. Like, how the hell did you get that? I was like, they gave it to me. They literally, what I've done so far has been a huge blessing, because I haven't had to do a lot of research yet. And I need to spend time creating my manuscript for my coffee table book and book of short stories and children's book and things like that. But the pieces are here, and sometimes we don't see what's right in front of us. So one thing I like to tell people is just start where you are. That's all you can do anyway. That's all I can do anyway. Start where you are. That's all you have anyway, is right now, right? So talk to your ancestors, talk to your relatives, especially the elders, because they're not going to be around forever. And so you talk to them, you write notes, you ask them questions, you keep the pictures, because most people have pictures. But one thing my brother's a big stickler about is label the picture, label it. Who is it? Because somebody online will see it and go, who is this? because they don't have the connection with the people, they don't know who they are, right? So this is what we're doing. We're doing the work in so many different ways, and anybody can do that part, right? You can pick up a notebook and a pen and start writing your stories. You can ask people around you questions, right? This is not brain surgery, but it is a divine assignment for me in that way, because I'm living it and, eating from it. But just like any other work you do, you have a choice. You know what I mean? You can choose to do these things or not. And so my son understood this too, because he got to spend a lot of time with my grandmother, his great grandmother. So as like a 9-year-old kid, he was 8 or 9. He would spend time with my grandmother and her sister at the big house. And he would like, this is so amazing that he did this. And I didn't tell him to do it either. I had the notebook. I had the actual wide ruled spiral notebook from 1998. And he sat with them and asked them questions. Like we call my grandmother Gran, right? Gran, who was your best friend growing up? Did you have chores? Did you have a TV? All kinds of seemingly random questions, right? Well, I have the notebook. It's in pristine condition. And he asked questions that I may not have thought to ask, right? And had he not done that, I might not know the answers to these stories, to some of those questions, I mean, right? So a lot of little things have great significance,
Well, it's great. I see a lot of pictures in your background, so I imagine you have a story for every one of those pictures.
I do. So behind me, you see my ancestral greeting cards, some of them. So in 2014 or 2015, I started making ancestral greeting cards, and they depict all my ancestors dating back to my great-great-grandparents. And like I said, he was born in 1833. And we only have one image of our great-great-grandparents. And we're lucky to have that picture. We're fortunate to have that picture, not lucky. We're fortunate to have that one image, which is crazy wild, right? So each card definitely tells a part of my history and my story. So again, like puzzle pieces, like quilting squares to a much larger tapestry, I get to like think about who they were and share with people who they were. So most people, when they receive my ancestral greeting cards in the mail, they feel something. And so I think that part is the spiritual piece of my work. That's the God piece. It's not me. I mean, yeah, my handwriting is distinct. Yes, the cards are amazing. Absolutely. But I can't make you feel anything because you get a card from me in the mail, right? But something about these images. And so I have a paper here that I wrote in 2002. And at that time, I had no idea I'd be doing this, even though I had these pictures in my life. I had these stories in my life. We have the big house, we have plows, we have all these things from my whole life. But everything's not revealed to you at once, right? So I'm living the story. And I wrote this paper in 2002, and this is the last paragraph of the paper. What's funny about this is I already had all these pieces, but I still, at that point, still wasn't quite clear what the assignment was. So the last paragraph reads, beyond these small glimpses, I wonder what all these people are really like, up close and personal. What do they really feel? I haven't really gotten into their heads yet. I do share a kindred bond with them. I'm certain that I do. I'm pretty expressive, and unlike most, I write many things about myself and about them. So when I'm gone, it appears that my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren will not have to guess so much about who I was, because they'll have bits and pieces of me written all around them. As far as a connection with my past, yeah, I believe there is one, many. So where this tiny tip of the iceberg ends is where it could begin in a much more lucrative way. There are lots of stories yet to be told. I haven't even begun to write these stories yet. So perhaps some of these unwritten, untold stories to my past are my ticket away from struggling and to help some of these souls have a more peaceful rest. So honest, in 2002, when I wrote that, I did not realize that I was actually speaking prophetically over my own life. So literally, I'm gonna tell you what I was thinking. I was like, oh, I just want to get done with this paper. Oh, what can I do to wrap it up? This is up for this, right? And so I remember where I was sitting, October 2000. In fact, it was written October 2002, okay? Exactly 20 years ago. And so I just wrote that paragraph. It came to me like most of my writing, all of it comes to, what's what I believe? I believe that, I believe in God, I believe in the Most High God, and I believe that this work, what I'm doing and what I'm sharing with you is absolutely from the Most High God through some of my ancestors to me. That's it. No one can edit me. And so the words come to me and they just come, into my spirit. I get downloads, as we say, right? Downloads, and the pen begins to flow. And yes, I like to write pen to paper. I still have a thing for pen and paper. Yes, I do. And so that's a big thing. So this paper went into a leather box for 12 years. Okay. I didn't think about it much. It was filed away in a leather file box. And in 2014, something's like, okay, bring those pictures out and those letters and all that stuff out and bring it into your immediate sphere. And I was like, okay. And then that's when I made the first ancestral greeting card. It started happening then. And so I understand now that when I wrote this, I was speaking prophetically and I had no idea. So these experiences are unique in some ways, but in some ways not, because I believe that if you pay attention, the seeds are already there. I believe that you come to the planet with certain things to do, and you can't do what I came to do, and I can't do what you came to do. My brother can't do what I came to do. No matter how closely connected we are, we have separate assignments. We just do. And that's what I'm walking out. That's what I'm sharing with you. That's it.
That's fantastic. Thank you for reading. So poetic, and you've got such a gift for telling your story and using that particular way. I'm wondering if you have had other surprises since you started on this journey, looking back on your family, growing up with that connection to the farm. There must have been other things that surprised you, either what I might call them chance encounters, you might call them divine appointments, but I might agree with that. But tell me about the surprises that you've had along this journey.
Well, this was one of the surprises that I shared with you, like the writing this paper in 2002, and then having it stored away for 12 years, and the fact that in 2002 we had floppy disks. I have no idea where that paper is. I mean, where that computer is or the floppy disk, but as God would have it, why would I have the original paper? You know what I mean? So that's how I know it's strategic. It's something that surprises me that this is actually happening because I am not orchestrating it. That's the biggest piece. So there's like, well, I call it God magic. God's not magic, but I just use that word, maybe erroneously so. But yeah, like it happens like seemingly through osmosis. But the way that it happens is I just get these, like, we all get unctions, or you get random thoughts or feelings that may come from out of nowhere. So it seems, right? I just kind of follow those things. I do. I literally fly by the seat of my pants. I'm not the most organized person or structured person, but I'm good at what I do. Because you know why? Because I'm using the gifts that God gave me. That's it. That's it. I'm a horrible actress. I can only be me.
You have some great gifts and a wonderful heritage, and I'm grateful that you're sharing it with this audience. I won't say congregation, because
same difference, right? They're same difference.
It feels like a spiritual meeting when we talk. But I want to ask the audience if they have. We'll take a pause here and see if there are any questions for you. Yes. I'm going to try to turn this your way, Sue.
Okay. Can't hear him. You said, where is it? Look under my bed, right next to my bed, under the bed, right there to the right.
That's right. That's absolutely great. Thank you. I don't know if Lola, Mo, I don't know if you're able to hear that, but I think Dr. De La Rosa got some of it on. Were you capturing
it's
that
Earl.
video? I think maybe she did. Maybe we'll.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So it was fantastic. So this is the kind of storytelling that that this Lola, see what you've done is you've opened up a whole well of storytelling here, and that's fantastic. That's what we want to happen.
I love it.
Perhaps if somebody else wants to tell a story.
Can I just
Yes.
add one more thing
I'm
real
gonna
quick?
turn this over here.
Oh, who's that?
All right.
I
You
can't
want
hear
to come
them.
up here so they could hear you better? Or you're okay there? All right, all right. Okay, I'll try to capture you.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up, come on up. All right, watch your step. I'm gonna put this back over on this side. And you can stand right here and go right ahead. Give us your name and.
Hello, Kelly. My name is Renee Harris Watson.
Hi.
I knew your grandmother. You sound just like her. You sound just like Jay. I
I
spent a
guess
lot of
that's
time with
me.
her and Marianne on the front porch of the
Okay.
of the farm.
Yes.
Your family and my family were very connected. I have a picture of your grandmother right here when she moved back to Texas. If you looked at your son's notebook, hopefully, and I bet my mother's name may be listed as one of your mom's best friends, because they
Okay.
were two of a kind. They were very outgoing. My mother was a twin. Her twin was the outgoing sister, but my mother was the one who was a go-getter, just like your grandmother.
Oh,
There's a story about your grandmother. When some of your uncles were in town, they came down to my mother's place. My mother lived at Luling. They came out on the ranch one night and went hunting on the river looking for coons. Well, the men saw this coon, these two eyes shining, and they kept shooting and shooting and missed. Your grandmother says, "Give me that shotgun." One shot and she
grand.
hit it right between the eyes.
That's grand.
That was Jay Wilcox.
Absolutely.
That was
Is your
her.
grandmother Lucy?
No, my mother was Lily Ball.
Oh, Lily, I remember,
I'm
I
from
remember
the
Lily, I
Ball
do.
family.
Yes,
Right
They were
there.
friends since elementary, middle school or something, right? When they were children, right?
Right down on
Yes.
123.
I remember
we're
her.
neighbors. Mhm.
Yes, I do
Yes.
remember her. I remember her.
And your grandmother also told me the story that she got married on the front porch of the house, and that your grandmother decorated the front porch with lots of pretty flowers. So I heard lots of stories from Jay and
Good.
Mary Ann.
That's so cool. Thank you for coming. That's so cool.
Absolutely.
That is so cool. I'm so glad you showed up. Thank
Very
you.
much.
Thank you. That is so cool.
Right, this gentleman that was up here saying, can you just come on up, put your, yeah, you just go say, come up and put your face on camera. Yes, you'll come on up next. And so just give your name, because you gave us such a history. We're gonna have to come back to you. And just.
Is it Earl?
Introduce yourself to Lola here.
Okay,
It's gotta be.
good afternoon, Lola. It's good to see you again.
Hey, Earl, how are you?
I'm fantastic. I hope to be out on the
Good.
ranch tomorrow with Marlon, and then we'll go riding around and looking for some things out there.
Oh,
Yeah, my
good.
name is Earl Reddix, a descendant of Jacob Rogers on my father's side, and on my mother's side, Sheffield, Ball, Pruitt, Tillman. Those are the names, and so that's our family out there. And I was so happy that this gentleman over here, one of our indigenous brothers and sisters, gave the story that you gave, because too often we don't get that kind of detailed
right.
information about
Absolutely.
our brothers and sisters who were here long before we were
Before
here,
us, yeah,
and the things that they went through and things that happened to them. So thank you very much, sir.
definitely.
It's an
Thank you
honor.
so much. Thank you, Earl. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank Ellisane, the Ball High School Association. Come on up, come on up. We got some help for you there. Because, yeah, our steps are
That's
kind
so
of small.
cool.
So come on up, and if you'll stand right here, we'll get you on camera, introduce yourself, and we'll stand right about here. There
Okay.
you go.
Hello. I am Ella Smith Sane. Was born and reared in Seguin, right on the east side on Walnut Street. My great-great-grandfather, Dr. W.B. Ball, was the founder of the schools here. Okay, Lincoln, Ball High. All right. And that school was established in 1871 and closed because of desegregation in 1966. He was also responsible for founding Guadalupe College,
I have
right?
an article about
Oh,
that. college.
right here.
Oops.
So, I wanted to, and I've heard about the Wilcox family for years. I grew up here in Seguin, and my dad used to talk about, we thought they were let me see this term I want to use, yeah, rich.
No, we're not. We are in spirit.
Yes, rich. Because that's how, we talk, oh, the Wilcox, and we remember when some moved to California, said they're coming back for the weekend or whatever, a family reunion.
Oh,
But they stood out in Seguin, Wilcox, and still do. But I have about 3 questions.
yes.
One is how much acreage do you have now?
Maybe like, I don't know, maybe 400, somewhere around there. I don't know.
What?
A few hundred.
A few hundred?
Yeah.
Okay, now, is it a working ranch?
It's a working ranch. Yes. We still have cattle.
Okay, and who is the caretaker now?
My brother is Marlon Wilcox Moore, is a steward of the land.
Who?
My brother,
Okay,
Marlon Wilcox Moore is his name.
okay, so he manages, okay. Now,
Yes.
other question I have is, what happens? Will you still have this tenacity? What happens if and when, no one anything, happens to him, who will handle the ranch duties?
My brother has 2 sons and I have a son, and we have several cousins that also participate when they're in town. So by the time we leave, they'll be positioned to take over.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's important because, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely it is.
I
Definitely.
don't want to see that, I have no part in it, but I don't want to see that Wilcox Ranch,
No.
because we talk about it all the time. This is my first time, that's why I wanted to come today, to hear
Oh.
someone down the family line to talk about it, because I've heard a lot about it. And so you have just given such a great visionary presentation on the Wilcox Ranch. Can we go out and take a tour?
Well, we're not set up for tours yet. That's people, I knew that question was coming. People always ask, can they come? But I think that next year we'll talk about things we might be able to do with more community members, but it's a lot to keep up at this point. My brother is, doing it mostly by himself at this point, physically, and I'm only there part of the time. So we'll think about it in the future. But at this point, I know it's an amazing story. People want to visit because it's like a museum in some ways, but it is our private residence. So no tours at this point.
Well, we like to just kind of drive through.
Hey, look, Jake's Colony Road is open to the public. It is.
Okay, thank you so much. I have enjoyed it.
Miss
Thoroughly,
Ella.
I learned so much, huh?
Miss Ella. Okay, that's like my favorite name. Okay, because that's my grandmother's name, Ella J. Wilcox Moore.
And that is my grandmother's name. I was named after her. Yes.
I love that name. Thank you so much for coming, and let's be in touch.
I am. I really am.
I
I'm gonna
love
get
this.
information. I'm gonna get information.
Absolutely. And
on you.
Dan has my phone number. Dan has my phone number. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
For coming.
Okay.
I really appreciate that. I really do.
All right, so we've got somebody to help them.
I
Does
love
anybody
it.
else have a comment? Thank you. All right, well,
Perfect.
we're about ready to wrap it up, but before we do, I want to say thanks to all of you. And I see the executive director of those, I got the lights in my eyes, but of Teatro de Artes de Juan Seguin.
Dr.
Here,
Yvonne is there.
Let's give a
Thank
big applause
you.
for, Dr. Yvonne Zalarosa. Good to have you
Yes.
here.
Yes.
Anybody else here from outside the TLU community that
So, I have to tell you this part though, if everybody's listening. So the reason that I'm connected with you, Dan, is Dr. Yvonne De La Rosa is the reason, because she saw me out. She actually called the reporter who wrote the article from June of 2021 from the exhibit I had at First United Bank of Seguin. So it's I have to tell you how we met though. She called talked to the reporter. He contacted me and he's like, oh, she wants to talk to you about the story, about the work. And I was like, okay, who is she? Now, what is it, right? But this is the funny part. So he gave me her information. I called her, right? I called her and someone else answered the phone. I was like, hi, this is Lola. Before I could say where I'm calling from and everything, Miss Yvonne tells you after the fact what happened. But before I could get it all out, she goes, you got the wrong number. And I was thinking, okay, so maybe Delando gave me the wrong number. I was like, okay, now I will text or call one more time. And I sent a text and Miss Yvonne called me right back and she goes, oh, please pardon me for this. My niece, I'm driving and my niece answered the phone and the niece said, it's Lola, you know Lola? She said, no. And I was like, she doesn't know Lola, but it was hilarious after the fact, right? I was like, they think I was a solicitor? Au contraire. But she had to laugh, and I know she's laughing right now because she's like, I said, but truthfully, you don't know Lola, you didn't know. So she just responded quickly. That's all your niece did, right? But because of Miss Yvonne, I'm here sharing these stories with you guys. So thank you so much, Dr. Yvonne. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the introduction.
And now we're friends.
Okay, Miss Ella. It's all right. Come on up. Come on up. All right.
Oh, I wish I could hear her.
Right, yes, actually, she's showing a lot of us the ways here. And so
I
thank
couldn't hear
you,
anything she
Dr. De
said,
La
Dan.
Rosa, so much. Leadership in the community. Yes, you have your hand up? Yes. All right. Yeah, why don't you come up here so we can all hear you?
Yeah, because I couldn't hear anything anybody said. Thank you.
Okay, you can stand right here. And get
All right. Good
Right.
afternoon. How are you today?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Okay. My name is Abraham Jaime Silva, and when you're telling your story, it unlocked a early memory of my grandmother and grandfather, because there would be summers and times when they would go take care of me, and they're the ones who introduced me into old westerns. However, my grandfather used to always say, hey, like, I wanted to grow up to be a farmer, because his dad was a farmer and he helped tend crops. However, every time I watch these old shows of the Rifleman, the Wild West, the Prairie, and watching all these old movies like The Open Range and Dances with Wolves, all these different movies, a lot of them depicted the natives, for example, differently. However, in more modern movies, they're depicted more accurately, but back then they weren't as well represented.
I have some work
Your
to do.
story kind of made me think that my grandfather always wanted to pause the show, pause the movie, and tell me what actually was happening and why these Apaches or Comanches were
Right.
attacking these
They're
so-called
defending their land.
innocent soldiers at these missions, because they're on their land.
Thank you.
They were the ones who were hunting down and making all the bison, all the whitetail, all the jackrabbits
everything.
extinct.
Yes.
They were wiping them off the prairie.
Right.
So for your family, I'm not sure there's any documentation of this, but how did your family react seeing all this media of the natives and how they were depicted, and how slaves and freemen were depicted on television and on old TV shows? Because
Well,
my
one-
grandfather, he made sure that I knew the truth
Yes.
and that I wasn't whitewashed. Neither
Yes.
did my mom, and she made sure I read everything.
Yes. So that's an interesting question too, because my brother, my dad, they loved Westerns like you just described. They loved watching that. It wasn't my thing, but they did. And so I'm so happy that you asked that question, because yes, I am thankful that they were able to put things in historical context, because what we saw and what we still see and what we're taught are lots and lots of lies, right? So I'm very grateful that you have the people that you come from, I have the people that I come from to tell us the truth, because what we see on screen and what's perpetuated in the media is not absolutely accurate. I mean, we talk about natives, and so people think that every Black person came from Africa on a slave ship. That's not the case. Many of us were indigenous to this land already too. But there's been lots of stories about, the mixing of the cultures and lots of historical mistruths. So thank you for that question. Yeah, we were taught very early on who we were and what the truth really is. And so we knew very early on by watching certain things on TV, we somehow had a knowing and a clarity from our ancestors and from our grandparents that this is not really how it is. And I really graciously appreciate that piece. Really, I do. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I love it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you for your time as well.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you.
All right, that's fantastic. I'm afraid that we're going to have to wrap it up, but you don't have to end here. We have some panels that were provided for us by just a beautiful exhibition. And thank you, Lola Wilcox Moore, for helping us arrange this here, and also Mo for bringing them up for us. That from the San Antonio African American Community Archive and Museum, or SAAA CAM. So they're here as a courtesy, and thank you so much for that. And there's also some cards. If you don't have those cards, I think we have them up front here. Thelma's got some, and they depict the panels. So those are free, and they're provided courtesy of I believe these courtesy of the Wilcox Ranch. And
Yeah, so SACAM, we collaborate with SACAM to do different exhibits. And so we did this as a collaborative effort. The postcards are definitely people to take just to have some snippets of some of the work that I'm doing. It's through the Wilcox Ranch comes to you via my Legacy Restoration Project. And a couple of things I want to say too is that this is so crazy, right? My brother and I actually attended a Lutheran school for 3 years. Who could believe that, right? So having a moment at TLU, I know, I'm used to saying TLC, but TLU, I got it. So thanks, Dan. Thank you guys for showing up. I graciously appreciate you.
thanks to everybody. Thanks to you, Elder Herrera, everybody.
Yes, very much so.
This has been a program of the Big Read Seguin. The Big Read is a program of the National Endowment for the Arts in partnership with Arts Midwest. We have several community partners, including Teatro, the Artist of Juan Seguin, the Seguin Public Library, for those and Pecantown Books. Those are some of our major partners. We have other partners throughout the area, some churches, and also Seguin ISD. So thanks everyone for coming. Have a great afternoon, and God bless.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to end the recording at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.